All right, well, it is 6:30, so we are going to go ahead and get started. My name is Beth. I'm the adult programming librarian here at the Mid-Continent Public Libraries, and I'd like to welcome everyone to this evening's program, Heart Healthy Eating on the Go, with Lindsey Robinson of North Kansas City Hospital. Glad everybody could join us. A couple of housekeeping items. I have put the link to the survey for tonight's program in the chat. So if you can take a moment at the end of the program to fill that out and let us know how we did, we do appreciate that. And that helps us to plan our virtual program. So if you've got topics that you are interested in, please let us know. We get some of our best ideas that way. Also, because we do have a fairly large group this evening, I am going to ask that you type questions in the chat, and we'll save time at the end for questions. And then I do have some upcoming programs that I wanted to share. I'm going to share my screen here. All right. So the first program I wanted to mention is Harry and Bess Truman, A Love Story and Partnership in Letters. We're going to be joined by Doug Richardson, who is the former administrator at the Truman Home in Independence. And he's going to be talking about the love story between the Trumans that was captured in letters that they wrote to each other, showing their partnership and how they helped change the world in the 20th century. And that one is on May 28th at 6:30 p.m. here on Zoom. So you do need to register to receive the Zoom link there. The next program I want to mention, June 3rd at 6:30 p.m. Garden coach Mark Lyons is going to be back with us. He'll be talking about how you can garden the organic way. So he'll share some basic gardening techniques and then discuss how you can grow your fruits and vegetables without the use of chemical pesticides and synthetic fertilizers. So that one should be very interesting. And that one is also on Zoom. And then on, oh, ignore that date. It's actually June 5th at 6:30. Jean Flynn is going to be back for another armchair travel program. This one, Barcelona, Jewel of the Mediterranean. He'll be visiting Barcelona, which is known for its vibrant culture, architectural marvels, and beautiful beaches, and discovering how the history and geography make the Catalan region of Spain unlike any other. On June 10th at 6:30 here on Zoom, Vanessa Young is going to be back with us. She is always cooking using fresh fruits and vegetables. And here she'll be looking at some summer cooking options that you might use with some of those ingredients that might be growing in your garden or in your backyard. So that one is also on Zoom. And then finally, on June 10th and June 11th at 2 p.m., these are in-person programs. Our June 10th program is at our Woodneath branch, and our June 11th program is at our Colburn Road branch. But Dr. Micheline Chance Ray will be sharing stories of the Harvey girls and their founder, Fred Harvey. Harvey was a concessionaire along the Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe Railway. and offered young women employment opportunities as waitresses and tour guides. And so they played a role in the development of Kansas and the Southwest. Um, so that should be a very interesting program as well. With that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And I'm going to turn it over to Lindsey and let her get started with tonight's program.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I'm really excited about tonight's topic, and that is going to be heart healthy eating on the go. And you guys will all get this copy of this PowerPoint emailed to you guys, and my contact information is on the last slide. So anything you guys need after today, please call, email, anything you need. Okay, let's get this. So our objectives for tonight, we're going to discuss the evidence-based nutrition recommendations for heart-healthy eating. We are going to learn how to choose heart-healthy options when eating at any restaurant, and learn how to create heart-healthy meals and snacks ahead of time when you are on the go. So to kickstart off this conversation, what even is heart-healthy eating, or why? Because adopting a heart-healthy lifestyle can reduce your risk of having heart disease or a stroke. Plus, heart-healthy eating helps manage all other types of heart diseases and other health conditions. It's not just beneficial for your heart. It's good for diabetes, obesity and weight loss, cancer, inflammatory conditions like fibromyalgia, rheumatoid arthritis, any condition there. So heart healthy eating can look a lot of different ways. One of those things is choosing more of what we call your complex carbohydrates and limiting our simple carbohydrates. So carbohydrates are the main energy source for our body. We do need them, and we'll talk a little bit more about these, but doing more of your whole grains, beans, legumes, fruits, and our starchy vegetables, which are potatoes, corn, and peas, these have more fiber to keep us full and help lower our cholesterol. And so the simple carbs like your juice, sugar, candy, sodas, white bread, white pasta, they're just more processed, less nutrients, have more added sugar. So less nutrients, and these guys in large amounts can raise triglycerides. So you'll kind of see the trend of maybe some things are choose more often, limit less often, but there's absolutely no food you can have to cut out of your diet to be heart healthy. It's just how to make that healthier swap most of the time. The types of fats we eat affect our heart health and cholesterol. So choosing more of your unsaturated fats like oils, nuts, seeds, avocados, and limit your saturated fats like butter, margarine, coconut oil, whole fat dairy, and higher fat meats like bacon, bologna, sausage, hot dogs. We're going to talk a little bit more about limiting sodium, same thing as salt intake, because too much of that is not good for heart, blood pressure. Being physically active is important. So really just finding those ways to move our body that physically feels good and that can provide us that mental benefit. And then maintaining a healthy weight. These are all things we can do to promote more heart health. Sodium is just an electrolyte we need to live. It's important to help control our body's fluid balance, aids in nerve impulses and muscle function. And eating less sodium can reduce your risk for high blood pressure, fluid retention, heart disease, stroke, kidney issues, osteoporosis, and cancer. The recommendation here for heart healthy eating is limiting sodium to about 2,000 milligrams a day. Sounds like a lot, but 1 teaspoon already contains 2,300 milligrams of sodium. And even those who do not add salt to their foods, it's still very easily to get in too much sodium just through the processing of our foods. So everyone has different nutrition needs, but I would say if you have any known heart issues or your doctor told you to watch your sodium, I would say 2,000 milligrams a day. But the general recommendation for people without any heart issues and you're just trying to be proactive and preventative, you can have up to 3,000 milligrams a day. So tips to reduce sodium, try to avoid it when you're cooking or when you're at the table, and limit it while you're cooking something. But foods that are just going to be naturally higher in salt or anything processed, essentially, because sodium is a way to preserve foods. And we'll talk about how to look at nutrition facts labels and choose less higher sodium processed options. But not only do more of our processed meats have more saturated fat, they also tend to have a little bit more sodium, like lunch meat, cured smoked meats, salami, bologna, bacon, sausage, ham, hot dogs. They do make some low sodium options on those categories. Anything prepackaged, frozen TV dinners are going to be pretty high in sodium, but not all frozen foods are high in salt, and we'll talk more about those. And a lot of our canned foods are going to be higher in sodium. Try to limit eating out, just because even there's a lot of nutritious options, it's still very high in sodium, because sodium's a really great way to enhance flavor, not just to make it salty, but also, sweet things. We need salt to enhance flavor. And then anything that has a low sodium option, choosing those. But despite the misleading advertisements out there, sea salt, Himalayan salt, that is the same thing, and contains the same amount of sodium as regular table salt. So it's not a nutritious substitute. So with whatever salt you use, just limit it. But finding those ways to use herbs and spices to flavor your food, because I don't want you to hate your food, and I still want you to enjoy the flavor there. So there's like onion, garlic powder, basil, pepper, Mrs. Dash, any salt-free seasoning blend. You tend to get a lot more out of it, kind of the more fresh. So fresh lemon, fresh lime, fresh garlic, fresh onion, can be a little bit more beneficial there. So portion control, this is important as well. And so the question is, what should you use to control your portions when trying to eat on the go, eating at restaurants? And there's really kind of three techniques you can use. It's just what's easiest in that situation and what works best for you. But we're going to really kind of go through all three to give you those options, and to set yourself up for success with eating out. You can look at your nutrition facts labels, whether you look at like something prepackaged, kind of a quick grab and go item of these. But all restaurants are required to tell you calories, protein, fat, salt. It could look like a nutrition facts label, but it may look like it may look a little bit different. It's not going to maybe come in the form of a nutrition facts label, but it'll be providing all the same information. So these are helpful. The plate method, we'll talk about intuitive or mindful eating. So kind of another benefit with these guys is these are great for eating on the go and eating out, but they can still be applied with any eating environment. So the purpose of nutrition facts labels are intended to make it easier for us to make quick, informed decisions about your eating plan, and to use this information to better our health. But I feel like one of the big problems is they don't really make a lot of sense in what they're trying to tell us. So that's what we're going to go through next, is talk about what they're trying to tell you, how to kind of maybe apply this. So to kind of dive in here, this example is lasagna, kind of a random food, but just to kind of know what it's referring to. And all the information on these nutrition facts labels is going to be different from product to product. And each of these labels contains product-specific information, such as serving size, calories, nutrient information, and then a little footnote at the bottom that explains percent daily value and gives the number of calories for general nutrition advice. So to kind of break this apart a little bit more, the first thing you'll see on a nutrition facts label or in any format of, online restaurants, serving size. So all the nutrients amount shown on a food label refer to the serving size. It is important to pay attention to this to know how much we're consuming versus what they're telling us. But it's not a recommendation of how much you should actually eat or drink. It's just telling you what it's containing. So a lot of times if you're having like a prepackaged, thing of crackers or cheese or nuts, you're not restricted to only have an ounce. You can have more than that or less than that. It's just kind of knowing how much to shoot for. So this example, 1 serving of lasagna is 1 cup or 227 grams. That's by weight. So if you had a food scale and you weighed it, this would be the equivalent versus a measuring cup. So if you ate 2 cups of this, you'd be consuming 2 servings. So you would just want to multiply the calories, the carbs, the sodium times 2, which is okay depending on what it is, but give yourself the flexibility if you don't have to restrict yourself to 1 cup. And then the next thing you'll see are your calories. Calories are just another word for energy. Calories are essential to keep the body alive, and we need them to fuel the body for everyday movement, ranging from breathing to running. Calories kind of often get a bad reputation just because too many calories is one factor that can lead to weight gain. But everyone's needs on calories will change depending on a lot of different factors like our age, sex, height, weight, activity level, and medical conditions. And so as I would say a general common range for the general public, most people, I would say the smallest would be 1,200 calories up to 2,500. So there's quite a wide range. So in this example, there's 280 calories in one serving of lasagna. And I would say cutting back your calories too much can kind of put our body in starvation mode, can kind of slow our metabolism too much. And then that can cause us to overeat later on just because we haven't got, enough nutrition for the body. So, and that's where I don't really recommend counting calories too often just because it's not, it's one factor out of a lot of different things that's impacting our health. The next thing you'll see are certain nutrients on your label, and we're going to talk about each one of these in depth. But food labels show some key nutrients that are going to certainly impact your health, like fat, cholesterol, sodium, carbs, protein, vitamins, and minerals. And the goal is to look for foods that contain more of the nutrients we want and less of the nutrients that we want to limit. So starting off with fat, we do need fat. It's a slow burning source of energy. We need it to absorb all these important vitamins and minerals, keeps us full. So we can always add a fat source in to keep us full with meals and snacks. But kind of like we talked about, there's two different types of fats in our diet. You have your saturated fat and unsaturated fat. So on here, your label, it's telling you your total fat. So that is telling you both the saturated fat content and your unsaturated fat content. But then you look at this, so there's 9 grams of total fat, and then they indent. They have your saturated fat and trans fat. So how do you go from 4.5 to 9? It's because your food labels aren't required to list all of our nutrients. So you can assume that there's 4.5 grams of unsaturated fat. And so you'll kind of see this throughout the label of they're just not giving you the full picture. Good news is trans fat's been banned in our food products, so this should no longer be lingering around. The products that used to have trans fat, they just replaced it with saturated fat. General recommendation on total fat a day would be 50 to 75 grams. But I would say, and this is going to definitely vary from person to person based off their nutrient needs. So kind of you can look at it per day in that way. Or you can kind of break it down per meal. Sometimes that's a little bit easier, especially when you're going out to eat at one meal or you're having one snack. But choosing foods with less than 5 grams of total fat per serving, or choosing foods with less than 2 grams of saturated fat. The American Heart Association does say we need some saturated fat in our diet. Just too much isn't good for heart health. So this is kind of anywhere from 11 to 15 grams a day, kind of middleman, 13 grams of saturated fat. Next, we got our cholesterol. Cholesterol is a fat-like substance that's made in our liver and found in certain foods. The body needs cholesterol, but just too much increases our risk of heart disease and stroke. And cholesterol often comes from animal products. But the cholesterol that you find in your animal products does not actually affect your cholesterol whatsoever. It does not affect our heart health. It's really confusing because they're using the same word cholesterol, but what affects our cholesterol are saturated fats and simple carbohydrates. And we'll talk more about those simple carbs. So it's more so large amounts of those, like the butter, the margarine, whole fat dairy, higher fat meats. Those are what are going to increase our cholesterol. The cholesterol that you see here that has 35 milligrams, that just means it's an animal product. All animals have a liver, and this cholesterol on your food labels is referring to the byproduct of a working liver on an animal. So I know it's confusing, a little frustrating. So it's more so transitioning to our thinking to limiting the saturated fats to about 13 grams a day, or limiting those types of foods versus looking at this. And then we got our sodium. So that sodium's that important electrolyte we need to live. That general recommendation of 2,000 milligrams a day. But you can really spend your sodium however you like. A low sodium product is considered less than 140 milligrams. Anything less than 35 is considered very low sodium. Less than 5 is considered sodium free. But use caution with any product says reduced sodium, less sodium, or lower sodium. That means they've taken about 25% of the sodium out, which could make it low sodium, but it may not be low sodium. So just kind of using caution there. It's the sodium in milligrams you want to look at. And then we have our carbohydrates. This is a little bit probably the biggest breakdown on our food labels. And so carbohydrates, we need these guys. The primary function is to provide energy for the body, especially our brain and nervous system. And all carbohydrate foods get broken down to glucose. And this is what impacts our blood sugars. And so carbohydrates can be a lot of your grains like breads, pasta, and rice, beans and legumes, fruit, milk, yogurt, our starchy vegetables, peas, corn, potatoes, and a lot of our sweet and snack foods. And regardless if we have diabetes or not, it's good to have, keep our blood sugars at the normal limits because that can help with appetite regulation and just keeping us energized throughout the day. The dietary fiber and the total sugars are included in your total carb amount. So this is kind of that breakdown like that total fat. So you have 34 grams of carbs, 4 grams of dietary fiber, 6 grams of total sugars, no added sugars. That's already counted into the 34. It's just telling you where it's coming from. It's really misleading, especially like your cholesterol. The word sugar gets used to describe too many different things. So all carbs break down to sugar. So carb, sugar, same thing. But right there where it says total sugar is 6 grams, 0 grams of added sugars, total sugars is taking into account anything naturally in your food. So like the natural sugar in fruit and yogurt. So natural sugars we need. It's included in many nutritious food and beverages. It's the added sugar we want to watch. So added sugars are sugars that are added during the processing of our foods, and that's what we want to limit. So in this example, they're only telling you the added sugar part of this. They're not telling you, they're not, saying total sugars, natural sugars, and added sugars. So here you can assume there's 6 grams of natural sugar since there's no added sugar. So a general recommendation on carbs, about 45 to 65% of our calories in a day should be from carbs. This can be broken down a couple different ways. 30 to 60 grams per meal, 15 to 30 per snack. But again, that's going to differ from person to person. Fiber, 25 to 35 grams a day is a general recommendation. A great source contains about 5 grams or more. A good source of fiber is 2.5 to 4.9 grams per serving. Added sugar, men should limit added sugar to 36 grams a day. The same equivalent is about 9 teaspoons. Women, 25 grams a day or less than 6 teaspoons. But do consider that 1 12-ounce can of a general soda has about 8 teaspoons or 32 grams of added sugar. So it's okay to have added sugar in our diet because it's impossible to avoid it, but it can be spent pretty quickly. So just being mindful there. And then we got our protein. Protein is important in the body for tissue repair, building lean muscle mass, immune system, hormone and enzyme production, and a lot of other things. So meat's going to come from a lot of your meats, fish, eggs, dairy, beans, nuts, seeds, tofu, tempeh, a lot of our soy-based products. So about 10 to 35% of our calories should come from protein. So you can kind of look at this as about 10 to 30 grams per meal per snack, because your body can really only utilize so much protein in one sitting. So that's why we kind of want to cap it around 30 each time we eat, and just try to get some source with most meals, most snacks. Then you got your vitamins and minerals down below. The reason they picked vitamin D, calcium, iron, and potassium is because these nutrients Americans typically do not get enough of. And diets higher in these nutrients can help reduce the risk of developing osteoporosis, anemia, high blood pressure. And so vitamin D typically comes from a lot of your dairy, eggs, fish, seafood. It can be fortified in orange juice and a lot of like soy milk, almond milk, cashew milks. Calcium also comes from dairy and anything fortified with it, like orange juice and soy milk. And then iron you can get from your red meat, beans, soy products like tofu and soy milk as well. And then potassium is a good source of fruits and vegetables. So these are kind of nutrients you want to get more of. And then on the very right side, you got your percent daily value. The percent daily value is for the entire day. It's based off of a 2,000 calorie diet. So for this example, a food item with 12% daily value of fat provides 12% of the total fat a person needs in a whole day. I tell people typically looking at the grams because the percents vary, because you can, tell someone how many grams of protein, carbs to eat, but not everyone needs 2,000 calories. They may need more or less. So I typically don't usually tell people to look at the nutrients. But kind of a good general rule of thumb is low is 5% or less and high is 20% or more. So trying to aim for low in saturated fats and sodium and aiming for high in vitamins, minerals, and fiber. If it doesn't have a percent daily value, that means there's no recommendation that the FDA has made for those types of foods yet. Okay, so to kind of talk a little bit about the plate method, we'll come back to the importance of those numbers of eating out, but that's kind of one way you can know how much to eat. The plate method, this is more of a visual tool. You don't need to count anything. This helps monitor your portion sizes and tell us what foods to have on the plate. It can be used a couple different ways, where you just section about a fourth of your plate to be something carb containing, about a fourth of your plate protein, and half non-starchy vegetables. You can't always section your food to do this though, because a lot of our foods are already mixed together, like stir fry, a bowl of chili, a chipotle bowl. So just use it like a checklist. As long as you're getting these types of foods mixed in somewhere, somehow, that's a perfect balanced meal. So I don't want you to just do meat and vegetables. Make sure you get some pasta or bread or fruit in there. But I don't want you to just do one big bowl of pasta and nothing else. So it's how we can get a variety and a balance of foods too. So to kind of bring this together, we do want to eat that variety of foods at meals and snacks, ideally pairing some sort of high fiber carbohydrate with a lean protein or a high fiber carbohydrate with an unsaturated fat. Because carbs are going to be a great source of energy, but carbs really aren't that filling. Protein and fat are going to be a lot more filling, but protein and fat don't give you energy. So we want to kind of get that variety and balance to keep our portions in check, but also to give us all the benefits. You don't always have to get a fruit and vegetable in, but anywhere you can add one or the two in, the better for more nutrients and fiber. And planning healthy snacks ahead of time will help you save money and keep you satisfied when you're on the go. And I have a bunch of snack ideas in the couple slides. I would say we want to eat about every 2 to 5 hours during the day. So I don't want you to go all day without eating. Just because we go longer than 5 hours, we tend to overeat and our portions become larger and we get really tired. But give your body at least a 2-hour break in between snacks just to let our body digest that food. So to give yourself the flexibility of, you can honestly do however many meals and snacks you want in a day. Some people do 2 meals, 2 snacks. Other people do 4 small meals. Maybe it's 3 meals, 3 snacks in a day. Just kind of every 2 to 5-ish hours. I know a lot of people, they're like, I'm not hungry. I can go all day without eating. So we still want to make sure you maybe getting a little something, even if you're not physically hungry at 5 hours, just to keep our metabolism going and to keep our energy up. But I also want you to listen to your body. If you're hungry, certainly want you to eat. It's just kind of the balance between, you need to eat every 2 to 5 hours, but I don't want you to, don't feel obligated to eat like 6 small meals a day unless you want to. Because the goal is to fuel and nourish our body. We can't just not eat. So it's how can you make more of those nutritious decisions to physically and mentally feel better. Plus, if we skip meals and snacks, we're often to eat a lot more and a lot faster when we're super hungry. So if you know you're going to be on the go, maybe pack some snacks so you're not going longer than 5 hours. And then the kind of third approach to more portion control is intuitive eating. We're not going to go through all of this right now because we can spend a long time talking about just this topic. But to touch a little bit on it, intuitive eating is an evidence-based mind-body health approach based on one's physical and psychological needs. It's being more aware of your eating habits, the sensations you experience when you eat, and the thoughts and emotions we have about food. So it works to eat to maintain overall health and well-being, learn how to appreciate food more often, and fuel and nourish the body, and feel better after eating. So it's comprised of 10 principles created by 2 dietitians, Evelyn Tribble and Elise Resch. But we're going to go through a couple of those principles. So yeah, these are some really good techniques to utilize in eating out, just because our portions with eating out have gotten a lot bigger. So becoming more in tune with what our body needs it can really set us up for success with our health. So honor your hunger and feel your fullness. Embrace your intuition. Listen to your body. We want to make sure if you're hungry, we want to eat, because if we only deprive ourselves of that, we're just going to overindulge later. But if you're full, you don't have to finish. So we kind of want to ditch that clean plate, happy plate club where we feel like we're obligated to finish everything on our plate. Easier said than done a lot of the time. But it's okay to go back for seconds if you're hungry. But if you're full, the couple bites to feel overly stuffed and sick aren't always worth it. So we want to use those physical hunger and fullness cues to tell us how often we want to eat, but also how much we want to eat. Just keep in mind that 2 to 5 hour rule, because like I said, some people can go all day without eating. But not everyone has hunger fullness cues, whether there are certain medical conditions or whether we just kind of maybe lost them. But it's possible to kind of get them back. So you can use the hunger fullness scale when you're eating at home, at a restaurant, to kind of help us navigate how much we feel like eating. So we never want to be on either end of the scale. We kind of want to be in that 5 to 6 range. 1 is you're so starved, you're weak or dizzy. We definitely don't want to be here. It's not always that growling in our stomach that tells us when we're hungry. It can definitely be the weak and dizzy. 2, it could be the growling in our stomach. Maybe we're feeling a bit more irritable here. 3, we're less famished, but hungry enough for an occasional stomach growling. 4, you're mildly hungry, often following a light snack. 5, you're satisfied, feeling neither hunger nor fullness. 6, mildly full with no discomfort. 7, you're full enough for mild discomfort. 8, you're stuffed enough for more notable discomfort. And then 9, we call Thanksgiving stuffed. So extreme discomfort here, and then 10 is the point of getting sick. So this can be a nice tool to use to check in with yourself prior to a meal, prior to a snack, see where you fall, check in with yourself in the middle of a meal or snack, and then check in with yourself after. This is not something we're ever going to perfect, but it's just kind of a constant learning curve for us. So we're definitely going to find ourselves at an 8. And then it's just, to not beat ourselves up about it and just, kind of look back on the situation, learn from it, and see maybe, okay, this would be a good stopping point. So I would physically feel better, maybe around a 6 or 7. But then there's going to be times where maybe we cut it too short and we find ourselves at a 4 and we don't like the way we feel there. So then that's kind of a learning curve to maybe go back for a bit more. Focus on food flexibility, just encompassing the term that all foods can fit. There's no food off limits, because food is just another word for energy, and we can't survive without it. So we really want to embrace the gray of nutrition. That's enjoying both salads and pizza, because you don't have to have that perfect diet to be healthy. It's just how can we make nutritious decisions most of the time. So I like this little picture down here of, it has your good and bad foods sectioned out. But when you cross off good and bad, it's all just food. But if you look down at the bottom, some foods have more nutrients and other foods may have a little less nutrients. But it's all still food and we can enjoy all of it. So let's kind of get into some meal and snack ideas now that we kind of have an understanding of maybe portions and the types of foods to have, but to actually maybe apply this a little bit more. And like I said, you guys are going to be getting these PowerPoints so you can kind of use these products, meal and snack ideas a little bit better. So quick, easy, convenient. Fresh, frozen, and canned are all nutritious. So we're going to be going through a bunch of different options here. One of your options here is 5-minute steamable vegetables. Frozen section, you just pop it in the microwave for 5 minutes. There you go. Keep them in your freezer year round. They're good for about a year in your freezer. So if this is something where you have a microwave at work or wherever you're going, there's going to be a microwave, maybe take a 5-minute frozen vegetable. Same kind of trend here, frozen fruit, just as great. I completely understand maybe some frozen fruit doesn't taste as good as fresh, but nutritious wise, it's still great. But some great ways you can utilize this is like yogurt, oatmeal, smoothies, frozen protein options. You can get like chicken breast, beef patties, shrimp, tilapia, salmon patties in the frozen section. Just take a couple minutes to heat up. And there's a lot of different frozen meal options, but one of the better ones that I like is Healthy Choice, just because it's it's going to be less in the saturated fat, less sodium. Definitely look at your nutrition facts label still, because not all Healthy Choice options are going to be heart healthy. But that's the brand where the majority of them are. My little bone to pick with frozen meals is they're pretty tiny. It's like more of a snack. They're not always giving you that whole meal. So looking at those nutrition facts labels or using that plate method to kind of help decipher what part of the balanced meal are we missing that maybe we can add to it. But Healthy Choice makes a max option to where it's actually a whole meal. You don't need to add something to it. Salad bags, salad kits. You can find these at most grocery stores, and all these options, there's pictures off to the side to give you some ideas. You don't need to go buy those brands, but that's just a random example there. Just kind of, have a big bowl. It comes in the salad dressing, all your toppings, just kind of throw it together. Quick, easy, convenient. Take advantage of those pre-sliced fruits and vegetables. A lot of times when you're in the produce section, my favorite one to get is watermelon, because I can't eat a whole thing of watermelon by myself. So, takes out the it's more convenient, but also reduces food waste here if I can't really eat a whole thing. But they do that with a lot of produce. Unsweetened dried fruit, shelf stable. You don't need to keep it cold. You don't have to heat it up. But there's a lot of sweetened dried fruit out there. So you do want to be careful with this one. I will say it's very easy to find sweetened dried fruit. Unsweetened is out there, just maybe a couple less options, a little harder to find. But I was surprised how many options Amazon had, just kind of looking up this stuff up. So definitely look at other stores online. You're bound to find something you like. The key here when you're looking for dried fruit, try to find something with 0 grams of added sugar, because a lot of your sweetened dried fruit, there's going to be a lot of added sugar, like in raisins, for example, and craisins. They can have a lot of added sugar. But they make unsweetened dried mango, apricots, and apples. Those are kind of some of the common ones I found. Canned fruit and water or juice. Canned fruit and water is ideal because it has less sugar, but that can kind of be hard to find, or you may not have as many options. There's a lot of like canned in water peaches, oranges, pineapple, pears in a can, but for like the little to-go cups, canned in juice would be your next best option, and then just draining the juice. We also got a lot of our grains and our beans. So take advantage of your canned foods. Canned beans, whether that's black beans, green beans, corn, any vegetable. Just try to get the no salt added ones, or get a can of regular beans and just rinse it with water. That pretty much counts the sodium as 0. So that way we can still do those items, but it's just not going to be really high in salt. And then you got a bunch of grain options that are quick, easy, convenient. They make a 1-minute instant brown rice cup that you just pop in the microwave for a minute. They make like the bigger boxes too, where it's more of a 7-minute instant, which that's still convenient, but more of like a grab and go scenario. These might be easier to have on hand. And then don't forget about your breads and crackers. Pre-sliced bread, that's already done for you. And there's a lot of whole grain cracker options here. I just see whatever is the cheapest that week in the bread aisle. It's whole wheat, whole grain. So it can barely be any brand there. I'm going to go one more thing on here. So when you are looking at your grains, just a little tip here, whole wheat and whole grain, same thing. But they can throw around the word like honey wheat, multi-seed and make it sound healthy. But a lot of those options are actually white bread and white pasta, which you can still consume those, but just more of your whole grains will have more nutrients and fiber. And so we'll go through some product examples next, but I was actually looking at Ritz crackers and Club crackers. They have like a multi-grain, but it's actually white. It's actually a white grain. So you want your first word to say whole when you're looking at bread or crackers. If the first word is enriched or refined, it's actually a white bread or white pasta. So Triscuit and this Brownsberry are some good options here. So some snack ideas. You guys can definitely modify this. You don't need to follow this to a T. But kind of just grab and go snack ideas could be like an apple with a peanut butter cup. And they make these little to-go peanut butter cups, so you don't have to carry around a jar of peanut butter. A That's It fruit bar. This is a one brand that's kind of, there's no added sugar, dehydrated, dried fruit. Lots of different options here. Get whatever fruit bar you want. Just make sure there's no added sugar. Maybe do like a cheese stick, versus having to go buy a block of cheese, cut it up, spend the time, do more dirty dishes. You can just get it ready to go. Maybe you do a banana and a protein shake. And so these snack ideas, we ideally want to get that carbohydrate and that protein combo together to give us that energy, but to keep us full. Any protein shake you can do. Premier is a pretty common brand, but the ideal protein shake has about 20 to 30 grams of protein. You could do some maybe like roasted edamame. They make roasted chickpeas. Maybe you do like unsweetened dried apricots, maybe with some low sodium cashews. You could do like a hummus cup and maybe some pre-sliced bell peppers. There's a lot of yogurt drinks that are coming out. I don't know about you guys, but I grew up with like the little Danimals drinkable yogurt things, or like I can't remember, like the little like yogurt tube pouches. Of our common yogurt brands are making like a yogurt drink. And a lot of these already have that nice carb and protein combo we want. So it's more of that thin drinkable thing. But you could also maybe do like some blueberries and some Greek yogurt as a snack. They make a lot of like individualized like yogurt cups, cottage cheese cups. You don't have to buy the big thing of yogurt and always pre-portion it. Those cups are really convenient. But maybe just kind of rinse some blueberries, pop those in a little container to take with you. Cottage cheese and peaches, cottage cheese and pineapple. There's lots of ways you can mix and match this. So whether that's like peaches in a cup and a little container of cottage cheese, could be something else just to have on the go. So whether that's like, with some of these that you want to keep cold, like the yogurts, maybe like putting ice pack in a cooler with you. But some of these other things like apple and peanut butter, you wouldn't need to keep cool or hot. You can kind of just leave them as is. So and some other ones, you can maybe do some whole grain crackers, like the 100% whole grain wheat thins, and like a tuna packet. They also make chicken packet, salmon packet, ready to grab and go. And maybe you do like some baby carrots that are already just sliced up for you. Just got to throw them in a container, in like a little guacamole cup. Or maybe more of like those little cuties, those mandarin oranges, have a couple of those with some pre-boiled or, boil it ahead of time, but some hard-boiled eggs. So just to kind of give you some ideas there, change it up to what you like, but just so you're not going longer than 5 hours, maybe to have a cooler or just some more shelf-stable options here. So let's talk a little bit more about dining out. Unfortunately, we are in a world of portion distortion. Just a lot of the entrees contain a lot more fat, calories, sodium, carbs than we would even expect, and it can be pretty shocking. So just to kind of go through like some tips to set you up for success while you're eating out. Think ahead and plan. Pick a restaurant with a variety of choices. It's required for them to list all the information on their website. So, like the calories, the salt, the saturated fat, the protein content, they have to have that on there. They also have a hard copy in the store. They just might have to go grab it. So sometimes it's just easier to look it up on your phone or your computer. Eating the same portion you do as at home, just because it's going to be a lot bigger. So, maybe not overstuffing ourselves and, around that same portion there. Splitting an order with a family member or a significant other can definitely help with that. But I can't always agree on to eat the same thing as my husband. So we just end up usually taking half home and having it as leftovers. I wish we could agree on the same thing because that'd be cheaper and easier, but taking half home is also good. To reduce the temptation of wanting to eat more, maybe you just before you start eating, ask for your to-go box and just kind of automatically put half in the to-go box. So you're not tempted to eat the whole thing because it's easy to do. Use caution at buffets. It's very easy to overeat there. They're just asking for it. They give you a cheap price and tell you it's all you can eat. So it's just trying to not overdo that just because it's not going to be good for our health long-term, even though it may be enticing money-wise. Maybe you eat a small snack before the meal, order a side salad as an appetizer. Just when we're so hungry, it's easy to overeat. Use that intuitive eating, those mindful eating techniques. Check in with yourself using that hunger fullness scale. Maybe use that plate method. You could use this at like a steakhouse, a fourth of your plate of baked potato, a fourth steak, half side salad, or more of that checklist. Choosing more of your leaner cooking methods. So anywhere you can do more like baked, broil, grill, steam, poach, we want to try to limit your fried foods, whether that's like fried chicken, French fries, a lot of those fried side dishes. So whether it's the meat or the whole food in of itself, trying to do more of the baked, broiled, grilled, steamed, and poached. If you're eating out every once in a while, you're not doing it too often, enjoy, get whatever you want. Don't feel like you always have to make a healthy sub. But if you're doing it, more frequently, asking for fruits and vegetables in place of more of those fried side dishes. And maybe add vegetables to more of your burger. Add it to your sandwich, add it to your pizza. Doesn't always have to be on the side. It can definitely be mixed in that meal some way, somehow. Don't want to forget about hydration. We want to limit a lot of those sugar sweetened beverages like lemonade, sweet tea, soda, and juice, just because too much of that contains more simple carbohydrates, can raise our triglycerides, not be great for heart health. So we just want to stay hydrated to improve our brain function, energy levels, blood sugars, aids in digestion, temperature regulation, lots of things. So just being mindful, develop a plan to maintain our fluids. Whether you use a straw to drink more, you carry a water bottle with you, maybe you set alarms on your phone just to help remind you that it's time to drink something. Light yellow urine color, best way to know if you're getting enough water, or kind of a good place to start is 64 ounces or 8 cups a day. A lot of times when you're dining out, maybe you get like a lemon with your water to enhance the flavor there. Or just kind of more on the go. You can use Crystal Light packets, Mio, Propel, Gatorade Zero, carbonated water. Those are all going to count towards water. So now we're going to go through like a typical day of what we would maybe go, eat out in a day of if we were to go eat out for breakfast, lunch, dinner, just kind of some common dishes that we could choose, and maybe how to make some healthier swaps. So who doesn't love First Watch? So this is a common dish they have at First Watch. We got some French toast, and it has a bunch of fruit on it, but also has like a French toast custard, powdered sugar, syrup, and a mixed berry compote. But this actually has 166 grams of carbs, and we were kind of wanting to shoot for about 30 to 60 per meal. Good source on protein. Hey, we want 10 to 30. So you're right there at 24. 7 grams of saturated fat. Not horrible here. Knowing we want to have about 11 to 15 a day. 880 calories. 820 on the sodium, and we want to limit sodium to 2,000 a day. And hey, 11 grams of fiber. That's great. But I would say that's probably the portions are a little bit bigger and maybe higher in some of the things we want to watch. So instead of saying you can't go eat this, here are some ways you can make a healthier swap if you wanted to enjoy this. Maybe you do a sugar-free syrup instead, or you can kind of cut back with maybe the mixed berry compote, powdered sugar, the custard, and then split an order with someone. Add a side of eggs to get more protein in. So if you were to kind of, cut back, do half of this, take half home, split an order, add some eggs for protein, you would actually be within your ranges on a lot of these things. So it'd only be 60 to 80 carbs, 20 grams of protein. We're down to 4 on the saturated fat. We're down to 464 calories, 600 milligrams on the sodium, and still 5 grams of fiber. But if you didn't want to make all those subs, something you could get at First Watch that you wouldn't have to do any substitutions, it's already good as is. They have a triathlete omelet. It comes with a couple pieces of whole grain toast, preserves, fruit, then like an omelet with egg whites, mushrooms, onions, tomatoes, green chilies, and pico de gallo. Not that egg whites are better than the whole egg. It's just that's how this happens to come. There's another option on the First Watch menu called the healthy turkey omelet. It's delicious. It looks good, but it's still 1,000 milligrams of sodium. So that's a really good example of just because it fits all the other numbers, just anything healthy can still be high in sodium. But this one's a little bit better because it only has 880 on the sodium, 56 carbs, 30 grams of protein, only 1 on the saturated fat, 430 on the calories, and 8 grams of fiber. So this is kind of a healthier sub that we can still enjoy eating out. Let's say we go to Chick-fil-A for lunch. We get their original chicken sandwich, a large waffle fry, and a medium lemonade. This is going to give us 175 grams of carbs, 36 on the protein, 9 grams on saturated fat, 1,290 calories, 1,800 milligrams of sodium, and 8 grams of fiber. So I would say it's probably pretty high on a couple of these things. But we can maybe make some substitutions. Maybe do like a grilled chicken sandwich versus the fried chicken sandwich. They have a couple side salad options, like a kale crunch side, and do more water versus like the lemonade. This would be about 58 carbs, 32 grams of protein, 4 on the saturated fat, 560 calories. Yeah, we're at 1,000 on the sodium, but that's where it's, they're just going to add a lot of salt. So, we can only do so much when it comes to cutting back the sodium, but it's still going to be less than, the one before, and 7 grams on fiber. Just to give you another option at Chick-fil-A, maybe you want to do maybe like a small waffle fry with a medium fruit cup, get some grilled chicken nuggets, and that kale crunch side, just to give you another way to look at it. And this would be 65 carbs, 34 on the protein, only 5 grams of saturated fat, 690 on calories, 880 on sodium, and 10 grams of fiber. So this could be another option. And when looking at this too, you can kind of visualize the plate method with this technique of you got your carbohydrates through your fries and fruit, you got protein through your chicken, and the non-starchy vegetables through your salad. Check, check, check. That perfect balanced meal. We got to go to a steakhouse for dinner. Longhorn's a common one. Maybe you get like a loaded baked potato, a 12-ounce ribeye, and a mixed green salad. But it's going to have, honestly, not horrible on the carbs, 82 carbs, but it has 83 grams of protein. So I would say this is too much protein just because anything in excess isn't good for us, even though protein's a good thing. And just your body can only utilize so much in one sitting. So it's too high on the protein. 37 grams on the saturated fat. And so that's, 2 days worth plus. 1,400 on the calories, 3,500 on the sodium, but hey, has 9 grams of fiber. So some options or substitutions I would make here, maybe go for the mashed potatoes. And the reason here is it's going to be a lot less sodium. because they really load their baked potato up on the salt. Maybe go for a smaller piece of meat, 6-ounce sirloin, so kind of, fourth of your plate protein. And then that mixed green salad, you can leave the same. This would give you 52 carbs. We're still high on the protein, but you can't get a smaller than a 6-ounce steak anyway. So, but it's better than 80. So 47 on the protein, 15 grams on saturated fat. So that's still a whole day's worth, but it's going to be a lot less. 800 calories, 1,590 milligrams on the sodium, and 7 grams of fiber. So just to kind of compare a day of dining out. So if you were to originally go with all those choices, you'd be consuming 3,590 calories, 423 grams of carbs, 143 grams of protein, 53 grams of saturated fat, 6,000 milligrams on the sodium, but hey, 28 grams of fiber, that's perfect. But if you were to make those substitutions, it just may seem like so little in time being, but when you're looking at a whole day or kind of, over a couple weeks of time of eating out, it can really drastically make a difference. So now it's only 1,900 calories. Let me see if I can. 173 grams of carbs, 101 grams of protein, 20 on the saturated fat, 3,350 milligrams on the sodium, and 25 grams of fiber. So a lot more improvement there. So it's just important to kind of look at whether that's the nutrition facts label or using the mindful intuitive eating plate method as some ways to kind of be able to do these substitutions. So overall, we just want to make those food choices that honor your health and well-being, taste buds, culture, while listening to your body and how it feels. But remember grace and gratitude. Focus on progress, not perfection, because you don't have to have a perfect diet to be healthy. It's what we eat over time that matters. And we want to create those lifelong sustainable changes. So set those small measurable goals that are practical for you. And that nutrition help is not a one-size-fits-all approach. It's definitely more of a gray area, and everyone's different. So it's really just finding, well, what's going to work best for you most of the time. Awesome. Okay. Well, I see we have some questions in the chat. Thank you all for coming tonight. I'm going to answer some questions now. And if you do need anything after today, call, email. And like I said, you'll get all these ideas in the email.
And I'm going to go ahead and put the link to the survey in the chat again.
Yeah, looking at these questions. Yeah, Babybel cheese, throw it in your purse option. I love it. Yep, those Babybel cheeses are really nice. Yep, First Watch has some good avocado toast. Yeah, I think those are all the questions I'm seeing so far. You are all very welcome.
Lindsey, what about like the protein, all those different protein bars that are out there, like the Cliff bars, the Lara bars, things like that?
Yeah, I would say there's so many granola bars out there. And so I would look to see kind of what bar is going to have 10 to 30 grams of protein, and kind of like that 15 to 30 for a snack. Cause like Larabar, that's a good one. It's, it's pretty wholesome. It's just dates, depending on the nuts and some other ingredients, but they're actually really low in protein. So Larabars, I think, have around 4 grams, depending on the brand. So you could do like a Larabar. I think it's around 20 something carbohydrates, but you would maybe want to have like a yogurt or like a cheese stick with it. Cliff bars, those are more so like, I think they have closer to 40. So it's kind of like maybe part of a meal. It's a good source on protein. Cliff bars are kind of more of like after you just get done like exercising or working out. It's kind of more of a quick, like fuel your body. So just use caution on Cliff bars. Sometimes they can be a lot more like nutrients and carbohydrates than they would expect, just kind of as a general snack. But yeah, definitely there's so many brands. So just kind of using those numbers wherever you grocery shop, whatever cheapest that you prefer the taste bud of.
Okay, and somebody asked, what happens if we eat more than the recommended protein? Do we just pee off the excess?
You can either pee it off and then but sometimes so you're gonna maybe pee a little bit, but then anything in excess gets stored as fat. Because carbohydrates, fats, and proteins, those are still calories. So, too much of any calories can get stored as fat. So, I know right now, like we're giving protein a lot of attention, which is definitely needed. Because the typical American diet, we don't get enough protein in the morning. But still to use caution that, we still don't want to completely overdo a good thing. Okay.
And then somebody else said, oh, I just lost it. What about tea for water substitute?
So you can have tea, you can have coffee, but they're diuretics, so they actually make you pee out more. So enjoy it, just have it on top of your water, but it won't count towards it, unfortunately. But there's a water enhancer flavored tea that if you do like the taste of tea, they do make those.
And someone else says, I heard pros and cons about farm-raised tilapia, salmon, and catfish. What's preferred, farm or wild caught?
I would say just whatever you prefer taste bud wise, and also budget wise. I would say any form of fish and seafood is going to give you nutrient benefits. So it's just, yeah, whatever you prefer taste bud wise.
Let's see. You mentioned eating every 2 to 5 hours throughout the day. Is there a guideline of how long to fast overnight?
Yes. So this does look different for everyone. I would say your body does need a break overnight, but it depends on a couple things, sometimes with diabetes, we don't want to, we kind of want to maybe like do a 10 to 12-hour fast. But if you I would say general body needs about a 12-hour break overnight. If you don't get that, it's not end all be all. You can go longer than that, like 14, 16, 18 hours, but just sometimes when we go that longer stretch, we tend to overeat. So your body does need a break, but the time on the clock does not matter. So if you're waking up having it something at 9 a.m., it's okay to have a 9 o'clock snack.
All right. Well, those are all the questions I see in the chat. I will email out the handouts and the link to the survey when we get done here. And then once the link to the recording is available, I will email that out to everyone as well. Oh, we got one last question here. What is the difference for male versus female intake of things?
So it's not that it's this much for male, this much for female. It's kind of like a calculation you do, depending on your weight, height, male or female, medical conditions, age. So there's a lot of factors that play a role into how much someone needs. Males typically need more than females as a general sense. So there's kind of a lot of factors that go into it. But if you want your kind of personalized, if you want to know how much you would need, you can shoot me an email or give me a call and I can kind of take all those factors into account for you.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for coming, and thank you, Lindsey, for a very informative presentation. And have a great evening, everybody. We hope to see you at some future programs.
Awesome. You're welcome.
Good night. I will send out the link to the recording once it is available. It usually takes a couple days.